In this episode, a young TikToker is after the perfect video for her fans. She heads to the Texas wilderness for a hike amongst nature. But as she raises her phone and presses the record button, 3 bison appear on the path in front of her. She thinks she can squeeze past them unnoticed, but soon realizes she's wrong, as one of them lowers its head and charges at full speed. She's thrown through the air and is left lying on the ground in agony. With no other hikers in the area and no phone reception, she must fight to stay alive. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. Rebecca Clark was well known as an avid hiker and outdoorswoman. She often chronicled her adventures and put them on TikTok and other social media platforms for her followers to view at their leisure. But one hike she took nearly turned deadly, and she had no one to blame but herself. It was an encounter that she caught on camera, and she has since used the footage to warn others of the dangers of coming too close to wild animals. In October 2022, Rebecca headed to Caprock Canyon State Park. Situated in northern Texas, 100 miles southeast of Amarillo, this state park offers more than 90 miles of trails. Visitors hike, bike, or horseback ride through its wilderness. Swimming, fishing, and boating are popular on its large lake, which is surrounded by the rugged beauty of the dusty red rock formations. Natural arches, bridges, and tunnels formed over the millennia are carved into the rock. On its plains, 150 bison roam, grazing the native grasslands. As Rebecca set off on her hike, she videoed her progress on her mobile phone and took a snapshot of herself standing at the entrance to the park. But what she didn't know was that she may be filming for her last social media video. The trail wound around the mesquite bushes. A gentle breeze kicked up the dusty red soil. As Rebecca scanned the phone's camera back and forth, taking in the scenery, she came across some of the park's bison. They were standing on the trail. Their heads were down as they grazed the grass. They moved slowly across the path. They were peaceful in their movements. They didn't seem to notice Rebecca as she hesitated slightly. But instead of stopping or turning around, she pressed forward. She held her phone up to record the bison as she talked gently to them, hoping to squeeze past unnoticed. They continued to appear undisturbed as their tails swished from side to side, swatting the flies. American bison can stand up to 1.8 meters, 6 feet tall at the shoulder, and can weigh in excess of 1,000 kilograms or 2,200 pounds. They are incredibly powerful and can run at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. They roam up to 2 miles each day, grazing and browsing the surrounding vegetation. Although they aren't considered territorial, they can become aggressive if they feel threatened or have calves with them. As Rebecca slowly walked past the 3 adult bison, it looked like she was in the clear. She had her eyes and the phone's camera trained on them, looking for any sign of anxiety or aggression as she inched forward. They had their backs turned to her, and she was increasing the gap between them and her with each step she took. The bison had been introduced to the park in 1997, following conservation efforts to preserve the iconic animals. The most numerous herd is found in Yellowstone, but the Texas herd, along with 4 other herds, provided the foundation stock for all of North America's bison today. Those found in Caprock Canyon State Park have a rare genetic composition, making them incredibly valuable to the preservation of the species. Regular DNA testing helps to closely monitor the herd's genetic diversity and control the selective breeding program, key components to ensuring the species' survival. As Rebecca continued forward, past the bison, she should have left at least 100 feet between them. Instead, there was a gap of only approximately 10 feet. One of the bison lowered its head to the ground. It raised its tail, but Rebecca pushed on. Then it turned its head. In an instant, the bison turned front on, facing Rebecca. Then it decided to charge. It covered the distance between them in a second as it galloped toward the camera. There was very little vegetation to hide behind, just the small shrubs scattered around the dry soil. A few bushes lined the path Rebecca was walking along. There were no trees. Nowhere for her to go. Nowhere to escape to. When the bison charged, Rebecca turned and ran, but she didn't get far, just a few strides across the open ground. Struck by the full force of the bison as it ran into her, she was sent flying through the air. She somersaulted head over heels before crashing back down to the ground. With her face in the dirt, she felt the bison gore her, its sharp horns penetrating the flesh on her back, its head twisted from side to side. The air was knocked from her lungs as it smashed its head into her again and again. She thought she was going to die. She thought that these were her last few moments. She squeezed her eyes shut and held her breath. Although the ordeal was terrifying, it only lasted a matter of seconds. The bison had seen Rebecca as a threat. She had been dangerously close to the small herd, and she had not respected the space they needed to feel safe. They responded in a natural and defensive manner. After the threat had been neutralized, the bison retreated and walked back to the others. They walked away and continued to graze. Rebecca was left in a crumpled mess on the ground. She was in a lot of pain, and she didn't know what damage had been done. She had been hiking alone, something she often did. Although it was enjoyable to soak up sights and scenery by herself, traveling alone also posed dangers, and it was common for Rebecca to explore remote regions where mobile phone reception was few and far between. Lying helpless on the ground, unsure whether the bison would charge again, Rebecca tried to dial 911. But there wasn't enough phone signal to connect the call. She kept trying, desperately pressing the buttons on her phone to get the help she needed. Then, a single bar of signal appeared in the corner of the screen. She called again, but the signal wasn't strong enough to get through. Instead, she wrote a text message to her family and friends, hoping and praying that one of them would get through. She was in luck. Her family received her distress message and immediately contacted emergency services. It took more than an hour before they arrived on the scene, but the whirring of a helicopter growing louder in the sky was a welcome sound. She was airlifted to a hospital in Wichita, where she spent 6 days recovering from her close encounter. Miraculously, she didn't suffer any serious injuries, just cuts, bruises, and a large hole gored in her back. Rebecca realized just how lucky she was. If she had been hit somewhere else on her body, it could have been a very different story. Wildlife officials have seen a rise in animal encounters over recent years due to the popularity of social media. More people are getting dangerously close to wildlife for that extra special shot with a wow factor for a viral video. Bison can be perceived as being docile and gentle animals, though their huge frames can appear intimidating, and they are often viewed as slow and calm as they graze the grass. People are often lulled into a false sense of security, but they are still wild animals, and they can respond with speed and aggression. Experts say that to tell if you're too close to a bison, you can do the following. It's best to turn around and head back the way you came, rather than pressing on. Raised tails, lowered heads, and pawing at the ground, all of which were observed by Rebecca, are signs of agitation and possibly an imminent attack. If you're out and about, it's important to respect the wildlife you observe, both for their sakes and for your own.